Right, so it is post Independence Day, post my wife's birthday, if you're watching this, because I'm uploading this on the 5th of July, even though it's now the 3rd. But if you're watching from America, you might have a bit of a hangover, because I think you've had a 3-day weekend, and you've probably had fireworks and barbecues and patriotic songs and a lot of doing this and a lot of pointing at a flag and tears and all those crazy things that you Americans do, which I love and I'm jealous of, and I wish I was over there with you rather than in this shitty country. Anyway, so just on Eagle Rare, which was fantastic, and it's from the Buffalo Trace Distillery. So now we will move on to Buffalo Trace itself, which I have had for ages. And a bit like the Eagle Rare 17, I honestly can't remember where I got this. If I got given it, did I buy it? It's been sat. I've got a shelf in my garage where I've got all my empty bottles of bourbon. Bourbon is what I collect rather than Scotch. So I've got lots of empty bottles of bourbon, and then about 6 or 7 which were unopened until I started doing this challenge, because I'm having to crack them open. Of which Buffalo Trace was one of them. I can't remember how long I've had it. Genuinely, no idea. It's from the UK because it's got a customs sticker on it, but I've got a clue. So Buffalo Trace, as I mentioned when I did Eagle Rare, is in Frankfort, Kentucky, which is here. See, I'm not using my finger now. And the Buffalo Trace, this actual whiskey itself, was introduced in August of 1999, which was just a couple of months after the distillery was renamed from the George T. Stagg Distillery to the Buffalo Trace Distillery. Now, the official reason behind it being called Buffalo Trace is it's named after an ancient crossing for buffalo on the Kentucky River. But the distillery, the site itself and the distillery is officially, it is the oldest continuously running distillery in the US. Now there is a bit of debate on this, and I think it's the Maker's Mark Distillery also has kind of some claim to that, so it's a little bit kind of, you know, is it marketing, where's the evidence, that sort of thing. From what I get from my research is showing, there was evidence of distilling on this particular location in 1775 from 2 brothers called Hancock and Willis Lee. Now Willis actually died the following year, but Hancock carried on going. And then distillery buildings were constructed by a guy called Harrison Blanton in 1812. And the distillery itself was then purchased by a guy called Edmund H. Taylor. Now, if you're a bourbon drinker, and if you like collecting bourbons and finding out about bourbons, and if you're watching from the various Facebook bourbon groups, Blanton's you would have heard of, and E.H. Taylor you would have heard of, so I'm willing to bet that Edmund H. Taylor was certainly a colonel, because there is a range called Colonel E.H. Taylor. Now, when he purchased it in 1870, he called the distillery the Old Fire Copper Distillery. And it was named that for a while, but in just 8 years later, in 1878, it was bought by a guy called George T. Stagg. So he sort of improved the distillery, kept everything going, and it actually carried on operation through Prohibition. It was one of the few that was they were making whiskey for medicinal purposes. It was like whiskey and also kind of like a grain spirit and things like that for various medicines and things, but it was a way of being able to keep operation through Prohibition. Eventually in 1992 it was bought by Sazerac. Now Sazerac were a company, family-owned company based in New Orleans that wanted to move into the bourbon market, so they bought what it was the George T. Stagg Distillery at the time. They bought the distillery, and then in 1999 decided to relaunch the distillery as Buffalo Trace Distillery. So it is now the Buffalo Trace Distillery, and it was one of those things where, as they renamed the distillery, they also then launched this. This is a non-age statement Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey as a kind of flagship brand of, this is what you will find everywhere. This is our core bourbon, as it were, for the distillery, while we have all these other brands. So there is Eagle Rare. There is, in fact, let me just pull this up. I'll knock the brightness down on that so it doesn't. There is. I'll do it from the Wikipedia page because they do actually have a list of. I'm going to have to go back through loads and loads of pages. Bear with me. They do actually have a list of the various brands of that come, like the official brands, because they also do a hell of a lot of bottling for other companies. Now, go to that SKU's Recent Eats. In fact, I put the website up now for this list of where all the distilleries come from. Come on, where are you, you bastard thing? Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Right, so here we go. Buffalo Trace, Buffalo Trace. So, Ancient Age, which we have done with Joe from Whiskey Wednesday. Blanton's, which we have done. Buffalo Trace, we're about to do. Colonel E.H. Taylor, finding that. Edmund H. Taylor. I have a sample of that, so that will be on the list. Eagle Rare, just done it. Elmer T. Lee, done it. George T. Stagg, I have one of them. It's Stagg Junior. It's not one of the biggies, which is quite an expensive brand, but I do have a Stagg. Hancock's President Reserve, don't have any of that. Old Charter, no. Old Taylor, no. McAfee's Benchmark, which I thought was antivirus software. Rock Hill Farms, which I have, which I was going to do until I discovered that these two were essentially the same, so that's on its way. Van Winkle, done that. W.L. Weller, done that. Wheatley is a vodka. Sazerac Rye, I haven't managed to source. I have had it before. To be honest, I was a little bit disappointed with it, but I've not yet got a sample of it. So if anybody's got any Sazerac Rye, and also Thomas H. Handy, which is another rye. If anybody's got one of those two, or both of them, and they could sing 25 mils my way, that would be fantastic, because that would pretty much be the whole of the Buffalo Trace range, the official range, covered off in this challenge, which would be amazing. So, I'm waffling. As I said, this is, as I said when I did Eagle Rare, this is essentially the same mash bill, which is apparently a low rye mash bill. So it's 51% corn, minimum, could be more corn, and it's possible that it's more corn, maybe some barley in there as well, and not that much rye, but some of it. So the difference essentially between this and the Eagle Rare 10-year-old is the fact that this doesn't have an age statement on it, and this isn't a single barrel, or it doesn't even say small batch. So this is a various barrels that have been combined together essentially to create consistency, to give themselves a spirit that they can bottle, which is pretty much always going to be the same. Whereas the Eagle Rare is single barrel, so there is potentially some differences between each bottling that they go through, and it's also 10-year-old as well, so we have that age statement on it. But ultimately, at its very core, in terms of the recipe, the ingredients of this whiskey is the same as the Eagle Rare. And this is 40%, whereas the Eagle Rare was 45%. Now, straight away on the nose, it's different. It's softer. There's not as much fire, but it's not what I wouldn't have said that it was 5% ABV's worth of fire in the Eagle Rare. It's lighter, it's fresher, there's like a cane sugar to it. It's sweeter. It's definitely a sugarier feel, but it's like cane sugar, or not quite burnt caramel. But it's when you get a blowtorch to the top of a creme brulee, and you colour it, but you don't burn it, so it doesn't crack. It just sort of softens the sugar that you've put on top, so it goes a golden brown, but it doesn't congeal hard, and it doesn't burn, so you get that dark colour. It's that lightly golden burnt sugar. It's lighter in every way and fresher. Yeah, very fresh. Almost fragrant, almost floral. There is a very light mintiness to it. And again, it's garden mint. Along with, there is a very slight kind of floral, like jasmine-y honeysuckle element to it. It's not obvious, but it's just ever so slightly there. It's smooth. It doesn't have anywhere near the depth of the Eagle Rare, but it's very, very easy drinking. It doesn't have the intensity. It doesn't have that dark fruit and Christmas cake feel. This is softer. This is sweeter. like candy flosses there. When I was talking about the dark chocolate fruit and nut on the Eagle Rare, this is milk chocolate and mint fondant almost as well. It's amazing to think that essentially it's the same ingredients in terms of, when I say the ingredients, the same recipe, you know, this is essentially the same mash bill, and yet it is a case of multiple casks and a younger age rather than single barrel and 10-year-old. But the core is still kind of the same, and yet it's two totally different beasts. This is Eagle Rare is like a sipping whiskey. It's to be sat there in front of a fire, or if there's snow outside, or if you smoke cigars with a cigar, or to be you know, after dinner with friends and you know, having a really good bourbon to savour and take time over and talk about important things. This is more of a I've come home, or I've just come home and I want a shot of bourbon. You know, that's my drink, and I just want to drink that, but I don't really want to think about it. Or it's kind of, you know, it's light outside. I mean, it's summer, it's July. You know, it's light outside. It's of an evening, and I fancy a whiskey. Do you know what? I'm going to have one of that. It's a good whiskey. Don't get me wrong. It's a good drinking whiskey. I'm not going to say quaffing whiskey, because that has got all sorts of the wrong connotations that I don't want to promote. But this is more of a quaffing whiskey than the Eagle Rare is. The Eagle Rare is a sipping whiskey. This is a drinking whiskey. And you know what? It's a very good drinking whiskey. It's really well balanced. There's enough flavours in there. There's not a huge amount on the finish, but I wouldn't necessarily expect it. Now you're looking at $20 to $25 a bottle for this, and I think it's actually really, really good for the price. However, if you're in the UK, you're looking at about 25, 26 quid for this. Amazon at the moment are selling this down from about 26 quid to 18 quid a bottle, which, to be perfectly honest, is a brilliant price. That is a phenomenal price at 18 quid for that quality bourbon. That is fantastic. That is, you know, I mean, the pound is dropping like a bloody stone at the moment, so, you know, $25, it's not going to be long before that is like 25 quid, but $25 is about 15 quid, should we say? So 18 quid on Amazon, considering you've got to get it across to you from the US to the UK, you've got taxes, you've got duties, you've got all this lot on. That's an amazing price. 18 quid, I would snap this up, because this is a brilliant drinking whiskey. Full stop, not just bourbon, a brilliant drinking whiskey, let alone drinking bourbon. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think the Eagle Rare is a better bourbon, but I think for what it's trying to do in terms of being an entry-level bourbon and entry-level whiskey, I think that Buffalo Trace is brilliant. I think it's really, really good. It's got bags of flavour. Everything's really well balanced. It's easy to drink. It slips down a treat. There's no burn to it. I think it's fantastic stuff. Would I prefer the Eagle Rare 10? Probably, but I'm very, very glad that I've got both on the shelf to have the option to come home from work and go, I just want to chill and I don't really want to think about what I'm drinking, I just want something that's good. I would go for the Buffalo Trace. If I have had dinner or it's a nightcap before bed and I want something special, interesting, that's gonna give me something to think about while I'm drinking, but also, you know, just give me really, really good quality, then I'd go for the Eagle Rare. 18 quid, that's a bloody steal. That's absolutely fantastic. Right, I'm going to get on Facebook and tell everybody on Facebook that that is 18 quid on Amazon, because I think that's a fantastic price. If you can find it for cheaper than that, you know, grab all the bottles that you can. It's absolutely brilliant stuff. So yes, that's me done. I shall probably do some of the other Buffalo Trace ones I've got over the next few days. So I shall see you at the next one. Cheers.